Welcome. This is Auntie Kathy, and this is After Dark.
Welcome to Auntie Kathy After Dark. I'm glad everyone came back to see what Auntie Kathy has to say today. This is going to be a very interesting podcast. It's going to be a little different because I'm going to ask questions that might seem a little silly, but once you understand the concept of what I'm saying, it'll all make sense. So let's get started. Today's topic is things that we do that we don't think anyone else does. Now, how did I come up with that? I was just sitting around. I was working on a project, and I looked down at my bare feet, and I have this thing I do, and I don't know whether it's a nervous reaction or what, but I do it all the time. People have noticed it. I've tried to stop it, and I can't. It's just something that happens, and I'm pretty sure no one else does this, but maybe they do. We never know. I ball my toes up like a fist, and I do it over and over again. Like repetitions of like 5 or 6 at a time, and then I just hold the little hand, the foot fist is what I call it, the foot fist. I don't know if anyone else does that, but sometimes when we're concentrating and not paying attention, that our body does things that we don't even realize we're doing until we actually notice it. And it's just weird, I think I'm probably one of the few people that do this, that make little fists with their feet. What's something else that I think I do that I don't believe anyone else does, but maybe they do? Let's talk about walking. Now, as a kid, I would go on walks with my mother, and we always enjoyed going on walks together. It was like that part of our relationship where we were hanging out, homegirls, mom and daughter, and having casual conversation and really not paying attention too much, just enjoying our walk. And she would always tell me to stay in my lane. I do this. I walk, and I have a tendency to drift. And I drift into people sometimes, and I catch myself trying to steer myself back online, but I do that. I walk and I drift sometimes. I wonder, does anyone else do that? Because it's odd, and you really don't think about it, and now it's one of those you can't unsee it, and you're looking for people who do that same thing. So yeah, walking diagonally, drifting into other people, I do that. So, I scoured the web for things I felt like people do that they don't think other people do. But let's take a idea from the internet, and let's say I have on, what is this, BuzzFeed, and I looked to see what people were talking about in regards to this topic. So one person says the sniffing behavior, and they promise that it's not about cocaine, but this is what they say. I have noticed I often sniff when I enter a room, so I don't scare people by just talking out of nowhere. So coming into a room, sometimes I think I've done this on occasion, but really never paid attention to it until this comment, But when you walk into a room, the first you want to sniff, I don't know whether it's just looking to make sure the room doesn't smell, looking for a familiar sense. Maybe I'm looking for a person, and I know that person wears a particular perfume or fragrance. And, the first thing you want to do when you walk in the room sometimes is sniff. That's a little odd. I can't say I paid any attention to it. I don't know whether I do it, but now I can't unknow that. And every time I walk to a room, I think I'm probably going to land up sniffing the room. That's just really, it's a little strange, but people do these things. You never know. So let's go back to BuzzFeed and let's talk about another thing people do that they don't think anyone else does. But this this is funny. This talking behavior that I think we all kind of do. Okay, so this is about talking behaviors. Talking to myself in gibberish when I'm doing something as though I were explaining what I'm doing. Okay, that's yeah, that's different. That's different. I mean, talking in gibberish to yourself, that's different. But it's so strange that it's probably something people actually do unconsciously. I don't think anybody's paying attention. So this blah 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 gibberish. And if that helps you figure out what you're trying to say, well, more power to you. But who does that? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe you do it and you just didn't realize it. How can you unknow these things now? So, let's talk about another one. I think these are really interesting because people really just don't pay attention to the things that they do in regards to looking at other people and what they're doing. And are they doing the same things I'm doing? Are you mocking me? Or do we have the same tick? Are we having the same, thought process? Who knows? We never know until we know. So let's talk about this one. It says this flapping behavior that I have to see for myself. So this is what this person says. I have, let's see. I'm sorry, you guys. I have hyperdriosis. It's a fancy word for sweating a lot. And my t-shirts are constantly sticking to my armpits. To unstick them, I just lift my elbows up and down a few times. Basically, I flap my arms like a chicken. Most of the time, I don't even realize I'm doing it. So, imagine having a conversation with someone you have never met and they randomly start flapping like a chicken out of the blue and acting like nothing happened, no explanation. I'm not sure how I would address that person. Maybe that look you give person, that confused look, like, why are you doing that? And until you get that explanation that they were trying to unstick their clothes from their sweaty body, it's kind of one of those things like, I wonder, do I do that? I'm going to pay closer attention. But, I guess you have to be a sweaty person for that to be something that you do. I wonder how many sweaty people there are out there that do that. That's weird. But you know what? It happens, and people do these things. It's just really strange that we don't pay attention to these things, these little nuances that, go by and we just don't pay attention. And it's not until somebody brings it to our attention that, we actually think about it. I really hadn't paid much attention to my foot fist until, my special friend said, why are you balling your toes up? Are you going to fight? And I'm like, no, I didn't even realize I was doing it. It's an unconscious reflex. And I think that's what happens. And an unconscious reflex can happen even when you're, doing something in particular. And, you can drift off into a thought, and your body may make a movement that you really didn't realize you were making until someone brings it to your attention. And I think that's the big thing. I think we don't know about the things that we do that we don't think anyone else does until someone else does it and you notice it and bring it to their attention. It's like, oh my gosh, I do the exact same thing. Some people may call it OCD, where you have a person that walks into a room and before they open the door, they turn the doorknob 3 times before they open it. And that's every door that they encounter. And it wasn't till a friend of mine told me she did it that I started noticing there were other people that were doing the same exact thing. I mean, I almost feel like there should be a club for everything. It's like if you're if you ball your toes up and make a fist, you should join this club. Maybe we should do an OnlyFans for all these different things that we do that we don't think anyone else does. It was different coming up with this topic because, I wanted something that was going to be different from anything else that anybody else had heard. And I wanted it to be interesting. And the more research I did on it, it was just kind of like, wow, I do that. I didn't even know anyone else did that too. It's just really, really weird. So here's a funny one. This gang behavior that I think really may just be this one person. Okay. I throw up gang signs at my dog. Okay, this is already, I'm already worried about this one. Don't know why I started, but I get a laugh out of my dog, just likes the attention. So for all of you folks out there that throw up gang signs to your dog, you're not alone. There's someone else who's throwing them up too. Your dog and their dog are very confused. So we're going to move on. Let's see. This dramatic behavior that happens in multiple acts. Sounds like a little Sybil-ish, split personality. But I digress. Here we go. I accidentally hit my head or something when I was little. I'd pretend to be knocked out for at least 10 minutes on the floor and then get up when I'd realized nobody was going to indulge my dramatic ass. Well, I mean, if you ask me, that's like counseling. Yeah, you need to get some counseling. Who does that? Who pretends to be knocked out for attention? Well, I mean, kids do that. I mean, they do that all the time. That's just like in the kid handbook is to fall out as many times as you can, wait to see if you get any attention, and then get up and move on. That one's a little different, and I have to say, I hope they're okay. I had someone who used to bang their heads on the floor and on the wall, and they would do it until they got someone's attention. And at that point, it was kind of like, why are you doing that? Because you're hurting your own head. I'm in a whole nother room. That was really dumb. But you never know. People do things, and you never know who else does them too. So we move on. We'll talk about writing behavior now. This writing behavior that might prep the pen. That's interesting. So let's hear what they say. Just before I'm about to write, sometimes I'll do a little circle thing in the air above the paper, like I'm revving the pen up before I use it. That's interesting. That's not... Okay, I was going to say that's not so strange, but you know what? That is strange. Are you casting a spell over your paper to write something wonderful? I'm not sure what that's all about. That's a little weird. It's a little witchy, but to each his own. We do things and we don't even realize we do them. And we do things that we don't realize that other people do too. It's amazing. We mimic one another and don't even realize we're mimicking each other because we don't think anyone's doing the same things that we do. I'll tell you, we are strange creatures, but we are creatures of habit. And we tend to do things over and over again unknowingly, and unknowingly that the person across the hall is probably doing the same thing. Well, thanks for tuning in. This was interesting. I enjoyed this podcast. Well, I enjoy all my podcasts with you all. I love you. I think you all are amazing. You're a wonderful family. I want you to continue to tune in, and there's so much more to come. So make sure you tune in to our next podcast with Auntie Kathy After Dark. Signing out. Peace.